Good afternoon, and welcome to the Voice of Wisdom. With over 60 years of experience as an investment banker, entrepreneur, investment analyst, genius economist, venture capitalist, and political analyst and strategist, Morty Davis is Wall Street and capitalism personified. The over 400 companies for which he has raised more than $3 billion over the years have created a countless number of jobs and exciting new products. Through the Voice of Wisdom, Mr. Davis explores, analyzes, and debates the most topical, political, economic, and social issues facing our world today. Joining Mr. Davis today for a discussion on the stories making the news is Len Carter. Len is an investment banker, business consultant, and private investor. And now, Mr. Davis and Mr. Carter.
Welcome back. It's 6:30, Wednesday again. Time flies. I made it almost to 100 years now, and it seems like yesterday that I was in my playpen. So it's great to be with you. It flies because I enjoy being with you. You're so great. You're such a great group to work with. You're my cohorts. You make this podcast, for what it's worthwhile. And you give me so much input that I appreciate. Even the criticism that sometimes hurts a little helps me to be more educated and more tolerant. So I open my eyes to your views. But anyway, thank you for participating. Again, I hope you had a great week. I love you all. And I have to start off, as I usually do, for apologizing to you, because by the nature of this podcast, where we review the major events of the week, which inevitably and overwhelmingly and maybe exclusively include tragedies and the worst things you could think of. Families that are killing each other, wars, pandemics, starvation, genocides, every kind of terrible thing. So, and it's what we deal with are the headlines that make the front of the New York Times or the New York Post or the Washington Post or whatever, the major network channels, the major what are they called? MSNBC, cable networks. All the news that's announced, all the breaking news is always some major crash, some major breakout of a disease or a flood or fires, or all bad news. People getting killed, young kids getting killed, genocide, everything bad. And we can't help that. That's the news. Good news is not news. Doesn't make the front page. Maybe news in the sense that it appears on page 42, but it doesn't make the headlines. We deal with the important headlines, including the headlines of the behavior of our leaders that sometimes we question and we're frustrated by, even though we feel that those are the wrong moves, that we never voted for that. It's always frustrating and it's always aggravating. So I have to apologize, and I wish I could change that. One of my goals in life is to help eliminate those things by making people more content, not happy. Happy is in American thinking is if you win the lottery or the sweepstake or something, or if you have 12 beers and you're suddenly dancing and jumping up and down, or you're on some addictive drug that gives you a high. I'm talking about contentment that makes the world and your fellow man, your wife and your kids and your spouses uh, and your best friends, your community, your country, all the people in the world, hopefully, more content, live a better life. That's the purpose of this podcast. It's the purpose of the book you see on your screen, if you have it in front of you. Happiness Guaranteed or Your Misery Back. And at the lower section of the cover, you may not see it, it says, how to be happy no matter what. But happy, not in the sense that you're jumping up and down and you reach a new high and you're carrying on like crazy, but really a satisfaction, a contentment, a feeling good about yourself, about the things that are happening in your life and to your family, and the things that you can influence. So I start off by apologizing, and I suggest that to overcome the nature of the news and the nature of what's happening to us every day, unless we have our ears and eyes closed, it's bound to depress you. So I wrote this book that gathers all the greatest recommendations, suggestions, uh, thoughts, philosophies, what have you, on how to be happy, how to get more content. Happy being more content, more productive, more constructive, more happy with yourself. So, my suggestion before we start out with this week's headlines and depressing uh, reports, news reports, I want to tell you the fastest way to overcome those negative, depressing, horrendous, hurtful feelings is to get a copy of this book, Happiness Guaranteed, or Your Misery Back. It's 365 pages, one page for every day of the year, that tells you how to be content and satisfied and pleased with yourself and optimistic about the future. Really contentment. The word happiness meaning more contentment than, this thing that you get from taking getting a drug that makes you high. So it has humor on every page. It has jokes. It has insights, stories, all of the great philosophers that I could find that had the best ideas. For me, it started with when I was young. I found a book written by a Catholic bishop who had a church in the middle of Manhattan. And he wrote a book that was by Bishop Sheehan. He wrote a book called The Power of Positive Thinking. And he convinced me, and he wrote a book that will convince you, if you get a hold of it, that by being positive, you feel good, good things, positive things happen, you have a positive outlook on life. It's self-fulfilling. So that, for me, The Power of Positive Thinking, and Dale Carnegie's great book, Stop Worrying, Start Living. He was a genius. and all of the philosophers from the beginning of civilization, Plato and Socrates in Greece, and all of the great biblical thinkers, and everyone who ever dealt with the subject. There's one Israeli professor at Harvard has the most popular course on happiness and gets more registrants every year than he can accommodate in his classes. So it's obviously something that people are urgently desirous of learning and, in fact, in need of. So my first suggestion, and the fastest way to do that, is get a hold of this book, run out and buy it. Not for me to get income, because any proceeds I get from the sales, I contribute to charities that help other people that are in poverty and need food, and people that are suffering illness and can't pay. All the things that improve people's lives. And it's so good that over the course of its being out in the public domain and people buying it or giving it as gifts, I've gotten so many calls praising the book, telling me how much it's benefited them, how much it's uplifted them, how much it's added to their satisfaction with life and their belief in themselves and in their confidence and in their attitude towards everything that happens. They're not dealing with it in the most positive, constructive way. So much so that I've offered to anybody who purchases this book, and even gets it as a gift, and doesn't find it uplifting and beneficial and really rewarding, I will send me the purchase slip, and I will send you or them back double the purchase price, including if you get the purchase price from the purchase slip from the person that gifted it to you, I will send you double the purchase price that he paid. So that alone, getting double what you paid, a reward, double your money without any risk. And keep the book as well, so you can still benefit from it if you choose to. So that's the fastest way and the best way I can advise you. Not I advise you, but I and the collective people who contributed during the course of civilization to the knowledge and the wisdom and the great thoughts that this book encapsulated. The humor, the jokes, the constructive attitudes. So run out and don't walk out. Don't wait till tomorrow. Run out and get it today. And in the meantime, I would suggest one of the fastest ways to improve your life is wake up every day, even keep a notebook with all the things you should be thankful for. We always think of the things that are disturbing us, are disappointing, difficult, failures. We focus on the things that are more likely to depress us than reward our feelings and uplift us. So read. You don't need to read one page every day. You can read one page every day, or you can read it as fast or as slow as you like. but I promise you it'll help enormously. And if it doesn't, if you don't find it does that, you'll get double your money back, and then you can keep the book. In the meantime, approach life by in a positive manner. Write down every morning all the things you should be thankful for. Happiness is appreciating all that you have, all your blessings, all your assets that you take for granted, you don't even realize. Your eyes work, you look out the window and you can see the colors and you can see the leaves on the trees, nature waving in the wind. All the things that we automatically assume that are going to work, are one of our assets without even thinking they're assets, So make a note of a notebook that keeps that and points you in that direction. And the first thing in terms of making your life eventful and useful and uplifting and rewarding is have a purpose. Don't let life happen to you. We all like a leaf in the wind that's blowing whichever way it wants. Or whatever happens as you walk out on the street, that's your good luck or bad luck. You become the master of what happens to you. You decide you have a purpose in life, and that purpose should be some goal that you're excited to achieve, that's achievable. I mean, like I'm excited to be a rock star, to be someone who makes records, music records, and sells a million copies. You have to do it within your talent, within your capacity. I know that I'll never do that, no matter how hard I try, no matter how hard I work, because I just can't sing. And my father once hired a cantor to teach me how to sing. And after 2 lessons, he came to my father, and even though he was getting well paid, he said, "I like the payments, and I hate to do this to myself, but I have to tell you, you're wasting your money because there's nothing I can do with your son. He's a nice young man, but he just can't aspire, or he can aspire, but he can never reach the aspiration of being a singer." So within your talents, within your gifts from God, write down those gifts that you can exploit. And I'm excited and would be thrilled to fulfill and start every day working towards them. Even though just the process of taking steps each day in that direction will make you a much happier human being, much more content, and give you a purpose in life. So starting right this minute, figure out some dream that you'd like to have fulfilled that's attainable and that you can make happen if you work hard and go at it. And you'll see it'll change the nature of your existence from being passive and whatever happens to you beyond your control to within your control accomplishing miracles. As I repeat often, a young man came to Thomas Edison. Con Edison is a company that gives electricity. Thomas Edison, who invented the electric bulb, and said, "Mr. Edison, how come you failed 1,000 times and you never gave up?" And Edison said to him, "Young man, who told you I failed 1,000 times?" And he said, "Everybody knows it. They're always talking about it. How determined you are, how fanatic you were, how, you know, unrealistic maybe you were. And you didn't give up. He said, young man, I never failed once. And he said, no, that's not true. Everybody knows you did. Don't tell me. He says, I never failed once. I succeeded 1,000 times in discovering what didn't work and got me one step closer to achieving the success of my objective. So pick something that you can achieve, that your limited or your expansive talents and human qualities that you possess will allow you to achieve. And this very day, start keeping a record of what you did that day, and then your mind what you did that day and how you moved closer to your ultimate goal. Just working on it. Each day you'll feel better that you've made a step closer. You'll take 1,000 steps closer to achieving your dream. So without further ado, run out and get the book. You won't be sorry. And if you're sorry and don't find what I promised you in terms of the payoff, send back the purchase slip or the purchase slip of the person that gave you the gift, and I promise to give you double your money back. Even though I don't keep any of that money, I give it all to charities that will help others feel better. I will send it back to you, and you can keep the book as well. So without further ado, let me launch this week's aggravation report, news report. Len, you want to kick it off?
Sure, Morty, thank you. So you started off by saying we have routinely cover the negative things. Well, this week's no exception, unfortunately. But let's start.
Right, good news doesn't make the news.
Yeah.
May make the front page. May make the news on page 64. And, get thrown in as part of the cable news.
Yes.
Throw in, but it's not the major news.
Certainly doesn't make the ratings.
Never makes the breaking news.
Yes. So let's start on the economics side and where that intersects with politics. So jobs report came out that the U.S. added only 73,000 jobs in July. But bigger than that, there were revisions slashing the May and June numbers by a very large 258,000 jobs downward. And unemployment rose to 4.2%.
All of those, incidentally, I should point out, were increases. They reduced the increase by 250,000.
Yes, so there was a downward revision.
And they're all downward revision, but nevertheless showed that the economy was creating jobs. It sounds like they're talking at the Great Depression or something.
Creating jobs, but fewer.
Fewer, yeah.
So slowing in terms of the
rate
creation.
Of growth is slow, but
yes.
It's still a very low.
Yes, and 4.2% is historically reasonably low. But because the numbers were not as big in terms of growth as they had been, and now even particularly with the revision downward, President Trump didn't like they weren't as good
as he wanted them to be, or
right.
Hoped that they were.
So decided to fire the Bureau of Labor Statistics Commissioner Erica McIntyre,
who merely collects all the data from all of the different inputs,
right?
And it's not her opinion; it's just the collection,
right,
of the accurate statistics.
I think a classic case of shoot the messenger.
Yeah.
Trump's rationale was those numbers can't be right.
So it must be that
they must be rigged, that the numbers were rigged without any evidence, rigged, and they can't possibly be right. So shoot the messenger, fire the commissioner, and discredit the whole government statistical departments by doing that.
These are the numbers that have been treated as holy, as contested for generations.
And downward revisions or upward revisions in general are not unusual.
Yeah.
They
go both ways.
Right. Up in revisions, because sometimes surveys don't come in, they come in late, they're incomplete. And so it's not uncommon to have revisions. In this case, they were downward. Right. So that didn't make the Trump administration's economic results too attractive. So she got fired. So, the question that I sort of ask, one, just believing the numbers, do you think that are we starting to see some impact to the economy as a result of some of the Trump policies, particularly on tariffs? Is that what we're starting to see in these numbers? And, how does this firing affect the credibility of the government statistics? Because, that's, as you said, they've always been numbers which have been relied upon and believed in. And when the president discredits, his own agencies, like he did when they, in his first term, when he went to Helsinki and they said, the CIA said, we think Russia may have been trying to influence the election, and he said, I don't believe them. I don't think he was. Again, without evidence. So, but I think it is a little disturbing, at least to me, that the numbers are the numbers, and you wonder. I tell you which job I wouldn't want, which is the replacement for that commissioner, because what's that person going to do, right? I mean, maybe, I guess, and then whatever happens, are people now going to question those numbers? Well, are they going to wonder whether or not this person?
That was if you remember the Greek classics, the Oedipus and Iliad. They would the king would send some messenger to get a report on how his troops are doing in the war or something.
Yeah.
And if he came back with a report that was bad, he would kill the messenger. So that's where the term kill the messenger. So Trump likes that, and he found it useful. So he doesn't get what he wants from this commissioner. He'll appoint a new commissioner, just as he's looking to do with the head of the Federal Reserve.
Right, but so it's one thing. It's one thing if, and that's a good example, the head of the Fed or other other economic policymakers, because that's ultimately a view. Even with the last Fed meeting, there were two Fed board members that dissented and wanted to cut rates. So you always have a view, right?
Lower rates.
Right, two wanted to cut, but more didn't, so that's why they kept the rates the same. But in that regard, rate cuts are more of an opinion. The number of jobs is not really an opinion, right? Whether we should cut rates, you could make a case. I think we should for this reason. I think we shouldn't for this reason. So it's not like right or wrong, but statistics, as far as I always thought, were kind of numbers. And so,
No, and they have the Fed has a specific assignment, and it's not one man that makes that decision. I think there are 12 members of the Federal Reserve,
right,
and they collectively take all of the statistics and decide if they deal with the two things they're assigned to deal with: the employment rate, if it's stable or up or down, and the inflation rate. And on that basis, they're meant to make a scientific decision.
right.
A lot of the politicians sometimes don't like it because the scientific decision is not good for them politically.
Right. But even making a scientific decision, it's still not in the same way as 73,000. It's not a number, right? It's still, you can still make.
It is a number.
But then 12 out of 12 would always come up with the same answer, and they don't, because different people can come up with different beliefs.
Yeah, well,
but
it's the magnitude of it. Some say it's not enough. Some say it's too much. It's not that they don't disagree with the number. They have a different opinion of what that number says about the employment.
Right, and that doesn't mean their opinion's wrong.
No.
But when you fire the BLS chairman because the numbers you don't like,
right.
That woman's replacement. I mean, that woman's replacement, what is he or she going to do?
Right.
I mean, to get the numbers to be what Trump likes. He or she he can't, right? Because all he's doing, as you said, is reporting the numbers. He's not making the numbers.
That's true, even if he fires the head of the Fed, because he's only 1 out of 12 in the final decision.
But I think...
He wants to fire him.
Yes.
He says he's an idiot. He says it.
Yes. But at least that's, it's not,
he reappointed him.
Yes. But at least you're not, and the labor commissioner who got fired, by the way, was an Biden appointment. So that also, I'm sure, didn't sit well.
Just on that basis,
right.
He should be fired.
That's she, right. But at least that, I just want, and we'll see what happens. My guess would be that new replacement better hope that the numbers are what the president wants. Otherwise, that person will likely lose his or her job. Again, another messenger being shot.
Well, he may find somebody who never took math.
But that's right, and that actually goes to that's why the question I raise is, like, does this do permanent damage to the credibility of the whole bureau? Because now you wonder
the whole
bureau, the whole statistics bureau, because now you wonder, like, if are these numbers actually being rigged to be consistent with what the president wants? I don't know. I mean, for sure now you're going to have people. Somebody's not going to like the numbers, and that person's going to say, see, it was they were.
Well, he says I was, and he's right. I was elected by a majority of the population of the electorate, and in the last analysis, mine should be the final decision. Whatever others say, even whatever the facts say. But that's dictatorship.
But at least it's, if you have an economic view, as opposed to, I want someone who's going to make the numbers what I want them to be. Right. But back on the Fed, so the Fed last month, the Fed kept rates steady at 4 to 4.5, despite pressure from the White House, as we hear frequently. There were 2 of the 12 members who wanted to cut rates. There is this debate whether they should. What do you think? Is it time to cut? Time to wait? Time to? What do you think? To wait and see? like Powell's saying, we don't really have the data yet,
enough.
or what Trump says, no, you got to cut now.
Right.
What do you think? View of Powell.
He's got to go with the numbers that come through, and he feels there's not enough factual numbers coming through that dictate that yet.
Right.
He says maybe we'll look the next quarter, but as of yet, enough to dictate lowering the interest rate.
Particularly when there are things looming that could very well have the potential to increase inflation. And so here's the big question, though. I mean, so what if we saw last time job growth weakening, still jobs were still created, just at a lower rate. So you see a weakening, which would generally be maybe an argument to reduce rates a little bit. But on the other hand, you saw inflation not coming down, maybe even ticking up a teeny bit. I think it went up. So what does a Fed do if, as a result of these tariffs, and people say, oh, see, the tariffs didn't do anything. But actually, they really didn't do anything because we haven't really had the impact of the tariffs a little bit.
Right.
But the big ones, which were announced on Liberation Day, were really postponed, right? Until like now, like this first early part of August. Now we're going to start seeing if there's a actual implementation and not another postponement, which may actually happen. We don't know. That's the history has been the taco, right? Trump always chickens out, but we'll see if that actually happens this time. But if economists are right and that the tariffs raise inflation and job weakens, what does the Fed do? That's like, because you don't want to raise rates because that will maybe hurt job growth. You don't want to lower rates because that will hurt fuel inflation. They're in a.
They certainly wouldn't want to raise rates.
Well, if job growth is slowing, then that would be a case to maybe cut a quarter point, right? But if simultaneously with job growth slowing, inflation's going up, that's like the stagflation. That's that's the doomsday scenario, right? So what do you do? And what's the Fed? I mean, Trump's going to go out of his mind if that happens, because the tools of the Fed are typically one up, right? The Phillips curve or whatever, where one goes up, one goes down. But here it could very well happen that you see a rise in inflation, self-inflicted, and then a decline in job growth. So what's the Fed to do if that happens? I guess they'll just stay. I would guess they'll just stay put.
The Fed constitutes supposedly the topmost economists prepared to deal with the information that comes through,
right? And
to move it every month, it becomes something you move all the time. It's not an effective approach. You got to be somewhat, cautious about, moving it, because it signals things. Right. Bonds go up, and the price of bonds go up or down, and so. So the Powell saying, I'm not averse to reducing interest rates, but not at this time. I want to see one more quarter or one more day, because there's not enough strong information.
Yeah, but
dictate.
I think he's going to be in a jam in a few, maybe a quarter or two, if the tariffs start raising inflation, and there's still the jobs growth. If it looks like the economy is slowing, and even with it slowing, inflation's going up because of the tariffs, then what do you do with rates? Do you cut rates? That worsens inflation. Do you lower rates? That worsens inflation. Do you raise rates? That may slow the economy even further, and it's already slowing. So I don't know. That's where
Well,
it's a difficult.
Powell says we're on top of it. We're looking at it carefully. We're not averse to lowering or raising the rates.
Yeah.
But it's premature. Let's look one more quarter. And so far, it's been the right decision. To change things so radically, so fast is counterproductive.
I do think
to the stability of the economy.
I do think that come next March, wherever we are at that point, the new Fed chairman, who Trump will appoint, who will do what Trump wants him to do, will, I think, surely cut rates, no matter what. Even if inflation is rising,
he can't unilaterally.
He can't do that. That's true. The question is, can he
convince
the other people?
The board,
right.
Yeah.
That I don't know. That's good question.
That's why it was built that way.
Yeah.
That it's not subject to the whims
right.
of whoever's in
right.
office.
And that's why he has a term, and he's theoretically not subject to the firing by the president. Theoretically.
He's not allowed to be fired.
Theoretically, right.
Not theoretically.
Well, I've heard that, if and I'm surprised that they haven't maybe tried doing this, but if the administration can make a case that, this is unfit or so
that's a hot case.
Right? Well, where there's a will, there's a way, right? But we'll see. I mean, I even that may be a bridge too far even for Donald Trump, but we'll see. I mean, he may just sit this one out till March.
Well,
and then
if he fires him, it would go to the courts, and I strongly believe that the law says that he's not fireable. Well,
except fine print. So that's what it will be.
He'd have to show that it was.
Right. And then by then it's March, and you might as well just appoint the guy you want anyway. So that's why you may just sit it out, because it's not worth the blowback.
Yeah, he's not doing it.
Right.
He's not doing like he did to the head of the Bureau of Labor Statistics.
Correct. Right. Well, in that case,
if he could, he would have.
I believe that. Yes. Or could have done it easily, because he's still, it still may be possible, but not without blowback. And I don't think he wants that.
He couldn't do it. He could announce that he's doing it, but it would go to the courts.
Right,
and he wouldn't win that.
Well, he would.
Because the way the law is written.
But the law there are exceptions.
Yes, so he'd have to
go to court, right? So, but
the judges.
Right, but by the time
he can't do it unilaterally.
Right,
that's what I'm saying.
But by the time that happens, it's already March, and you might as well. He's not looking for that. Right. Whereas the BLS woman, he has the absolute right to fire her. She's part of the executive branch. So, all right, enough for economics. Now, a topic we've discussed many times, and if we had the show every day, we could have the same topic every day, because there's at least one mass shooting in the U.S. every day, as we know, at least one. So if we had the show twice a day,
there's more than one every day.
So we could have the show more than once a day.
The record in the United States, more than one mass shooting.
So last week
every day.
We saw a guy go into a New York City office building, shoot down the security guard, get in the elevator, go up. And
even though those buildings have a policeman or a security guard,
they were shot
at the front desk,
right
before you get in.
Two guys
go to those buildings,
right. So, but what are they to the point we frequently make? It shows you how a good guy with a gun doesn't always stop a bad guy with a gun, right?
No, not if the guy with the gun
gets to the good guy faster, which is what very often happens, if not always.
Because the guy at the desk
isn't like, hold on a second, hold on, let me get my gun out. Now you can shoot.
Right.
Doesn't happen. So you had 4 lives taken, and
including the police.
Yes, a security guard, an off-duty New York City cop who was shot, and then two women who were working in the building, both of which I think were in the lobby. Talk about, unfortunately, being in the wrong place at the wrong time. I don't think he shot them on the floor. I think when he went up to the floor, he shot himself. I don't think people were shot in there on their floor. I think
But they weren't shot in the lobby.
they were shot on the floor?
No, up as he went up.
In the elevator?
I don't know, in the elevator or in their offices. Not in the lobby.
I'm not sure. I heard the opposite, but it could be wrong.
I could be wrong too.
But in any event,
It rarely happens, but I could be wrong.
he then shot himself. So, you know, a practical question and a philosophical question. The practical question is, you know, what do office buildings? How should office buildings react? You know, the philosophical question is, does this change the country or the views on guns or anything else? And I think that's a resounding FC, as you would say, fat chance.
Never happened.
Never happened. But
even when there's mass shootings
right,
of little innocent kids,
right,
and everybody's so upset and so forth, and they start to bring up gun control of any kind.
right.
There's a big thing, you know, at this point we shouldn't discuss that. We should take care of the problem.
Well, in this case, he made the shooter, you know, makes the case for those people's arguments because he said, I have mental illness. Study my brain after in the autopsy, I have brain concussion, traumatic brain. I'm mentally ill. So that's the argument that says it's not guns, it's mental illness. That's the problem.
But he shouldn't be able to get a gun.
Well, but I'm saying the argument that people use that it's mental illness, they would use again here by saying, look, he was mentally ill.
But if we had gun control,
I don't disagree. I'm saying
we have it as a matter of fact. You're not allowed to sell a gun to somebody. They do background checks now.
Well, he got it in
and
Nevada,
you can't even sue. Congress passed a law that said there's such strong backing for guns that they passed a law. You can't sue the gun manufacturer, the gun wholesaler, or the gun retailer.
So,
even though he might have sold it to somebody who has a terrible record, who's killed people, who's out on bail or whatever.
Yeah, I mean, I don't know what checks he bought it in Nevada, the gun. So, I don't know what checks they did in Nevada.
Well, they have to make it a federal thing. Gun control.
But what do you do? What do you do if you're like an office building? Like, is it just? Do you make it your office building a fortress? You know, you can't. Do you have more guards? I mean, I asked my sons work in office buildings in Manhattan. I asked them, is there anything changed? And they said, yeah, there's now more security guys, one on each floor now, as well as more in the lobby. But, you know, what's that going to do again when you have an assault weapon coming in?
You got to deal with the underlying problem. Too many guns in the United. No other country in the world has anywhere near that problem. Nowhere near. Only in the United States, because they have this thing about every man and woman too now is allowed to carry. A lot of them have now open carry. You can carry a gun into a bar. You could be stoned and not know what you're doing and wipe out all the people at the bar. I mean, it has such unlimited protection. It's madness.
So that's unfortunately not a topic we're going to solve today. But let's talk about.
But we do know the solution.
Yeah, the implementation. Sometimes the answer is easier than the implementation of the answer.
Well, we don't have as big bribes on the other side as the NRA has. The minute somebody says they're going to vote for any gun control, any member of the legislature, the Congress or the Senate, they immediately announce they're going to donate a fortune to primary out of that seat, to get him out of the seat, to help lose. They're afraid.
Let's go back to a campaign promise that President Trump made. He said, "I am your retribution," while he was campaigning. So we saw the other day that the Attorney General, Pam Bondi, is now ordered prosecutors to start a grand jury probe into Obama officials over the Russia investigation, saying that that was an illegal investigation and going after those Obama officials. So, what do you think? But it looks to me like that's promises made, promises kept, retribution against people that, did wrong by Donald Trump now, feeling the wrath of the Justice Department. I'm a little surprised that Pam Bondi, who I thought was a little more straight, would be going along with this, although some people say that it's more of a diversion, to keep people from talking about the Epstein files or other things, and that it's a grand jury probe. It's not, and I haven't heard any actual crimes that anyone is being accused of, but it certainly makes the headlines. And when everyone's talking about Epstein, and Trump doesn't want people to be talking about that, you can create another news cycle.
Have you come up with any evidence that those violations did occur?
I haven't heard what even the violations are. Okay. So I don't know. That's the thing. But it makes a news cycle and gets people talking about that instead of talking about other things.
I told you my view. They should put jail bars around all of Washington and let out the few innocent politicians
who aren't guilty.
Right.
So I guess we'll see. But again, that would be, it'll be unfortunate if this turns into the same sort of political prosecution that Trump was so vocal about when he was the victim, and now seems to be sort of the shoe on the other foot.
But nothing ever happened to him, and nothing's going to happen on this. Either way, it's more seemingly for propaganda purposes.
Yeah, that's what I actually do believe that there is a logic to it just
There's
being
intention
a diversion.
But so far, Trump was indicted 94 times or something. Nothing happened, and even if they bring some evidence, they can't get the president, the Supreme Court help.
Right, there's immunity.
It's almost impossible.
Well, that's where the Supreme Court decision is a double-edged sword, because Obama would have the same immunity.
Yeah, of course.
So, but they're going after the Obama officials, I think, to make their lives miserable. Right. But I actually think it might just be a diversion. So, so Donald Trump came out of the real estate industry, renovation, and opulence is something that he's big on. So he's announced a $200 million renovation to the White House, including a massive ballroom to be added along as a new wing. So I guess an interesting thing is, he said between him and the donors, that's how it will be paid for. So right off the bat, it makes it difficult, because if it were a taxpayer-funded thing, which I think his renovation of the Oval Office and his paving over of the Rose Garden with the cement pavers, I bet that was probably taxpayer-funded. This $200 million ballroom, he's paying out of his own pocket with donors. So you think the president should have the ability to do whatever he wants with the White House if he pays for it himself? Or should it be something that has some approval, check and balance, or
I
some
don't know if
other?
there's a specific prohibition,
Yeah,
but as long as it doesn't really change anybody's rights, any citizen's rights, and it's not being paid for by taxpayers, I don't see why there would be a great deal of resistance to having a ball, unless it's detrimental to the president's serving.
yeah. I mean,
I don't know
it's been a hard one for his opposition, for the Democrats to poke at.
Yeah,
Although I did hear Chuck Schumer say why do we need a ballroom? He's happy to eat his hamburger at his desk.
that's a joke.
So why do we need something like that? It's just wasteful. But they have to poke. So that's the best they can do.
No, but I'm saying he hosts presidents of other countries, of important people, everybody. So you could make a case that it's some useful addition. I forget what the word is.
Enhancement.
Amenity.
Yeah.
Amenity that he should have. I don't see that should be a big issue, unless somebody comes up with some legitimate objection. If the citizen taxpayers are not paying for it,
that's why
it's an improvement in the operation of the White House.
Right. That's why I found that I was eager to see how it would be criticized, because I knew it was going to be criticized.
Yeah.
The other side's always going to criticize Trump, no matter what. And that was it. Why do we need it? We can eat the hamburgers at our desk.
We're up to the final 3 minutes.
Yeah. So final question we can talk about. We can
produce it.
Yes, we are almost out of time. We'll shift just for a moment to foreign policy. So we saw former Russian President Dmitry Medvedev taunting Trump about Trump saying he wanted more sanctions on Moscow over its invasion of Ukraine, and insisting that each ultimatum is a threat and a step towards war. In response to that, Trump ordered 2 nuclear submarines to appropriate regions, wherever those appropriate regions are. And, I guess, how smart do you think that decision was? And even if it was a good one, is that something you should announce to the world, that you're moving nuclear submarines?
I think it's a horrendous decision. There's something that prevails not far from here, next to the main highway, the side roads. The young kids have something, they race towards each other. I think it's called chicken or something. So the one who stops before the
loses.
Crash, it's called chicken.
Right, loses.
So they're so brave.
Right.
They don't stop and
they both get killed. Yes.
That's what you're talking about here.
Yeah.
That's the way a world war could start very, very easily. You just keep raising the ante on both sides, and before you know it. So I think it's wrong and even idiotic to do that. The Russians know we have nuclear submarines.
I think they realized that, because what followed
Something followed? I didn't read that.
Was I think either the Kremlin or Medvedev himself downplaying, we don't really, we don't want problems, we're not really trying to ask, because I think he realized that was a taunt, that he probably shouldn't have made, given Trump's response. So they tried to backpedal a little bit and
Yeah, but the worst
and
is the
de-escalate
response
what
that the
happened.
U.S. made. We sent submarines right there,
But that's how Trump operates.
I'm saying, but
Nobody.
U.S. What I think it's very wrong on our side to send, because you're approaching the point where they're right on top of each other and can break out any minute. I think the First World War started by somebody shooting
Yes.
somebody in some side country, not even one of the major countries, maybe Yugoslavia or I forgot what country, and that launched the First World War.
Right.
You don't.
It only increases the chances that something could go wrong, a mistake.
This idea of peace through strength is kind of ridiculous. If you use this, it's only to have the strength to intimidate people, to discourage people from acting. But once somebody acts on that and gets close to starting the war, then that's not peace. That's I forget the word I'm thinking of. Not an incentive, but it's like lighting the fire near something that would explode or something.
Yep. Yep.
You don't do that. They know we have strength. They should, avoid direct confrontation.
So, with that said, we've exhausted all of the week's bad news, but we have a whole nother week to get more bad news.
Exhausted is the right.
But you don't have to worry that 7 days from now we'll be back here again talking about more bad news.
I'm exhausted from dealing with all these issues. Okay, God bless you all. Thank you for joining me and being part of this very successful podcast. I wish you everything wonderful. Have a great week, a happy week, a content week, and a happy, content every day of your life. At least until you're 120. If you're over 120, then another 25 years. And then we'll negotiate for more. I love you. See you next week. Remember, 6:30 Wednesday night, we have a date. God bless you. Bye.